to today's agenda, it will be to make it obvious that there's a lot we can do with visuals. Some of the things that sometimes when we use darks and they look a bit complex, you find out that in visuals you could have achieved the same results, because at the end of it, or at the end of the Power Query, at the end of the darks, it's the visuals the users are going to see. That's what they are going to interact with. So I have already created the file that or the data that we're going to use, but I've not done anything to it than just connect to the data. So I have connected to some data in, let me see if earlier on the session before now I had a problem with my zooming, but I think it's working again now. Just pray it doesn't disappoint me again. It embarrassed me during the Excel session. So okay, so I think it's working fine back again. So this is the data that I have to demonstrate with for us, and most importantly, the part of the data that we are going to use is I'm going to use exchange data. All right, so I've turned off. I've muted everyone. So let's start. Visuals in Excel. No, Power BI, scrap that. In Power BI, okay? So we all know that these are where all the visuals are, right? And then I'm going to start from a concept to steps approach. So imagine that I have, as I have here, I have stocks, Nigerian stocks data going as far back as year 2000, right? So we all know that if I want to show what all of the companies are doing, I can use a table. So let's start with a table. I can use a table, and in this case, let me use a matrix table, right? And I can decide to show, okay, all the companies on the stock exchange. So for you now, it could be all your clients, it could be, but then let's just follow along. I can say all the companies on the stock exchange. So which means I drag to rows the company names. Company names, where is that now? Name, okay. So I drag to rows the name, and instantly I'm going to have the names of all the companies pop up. So that's coming up. Okay, so I have the names of all the companies showing right now. Okay, now if I drag the price, if I drag the price, so if I drag the price, in fact, preferably the closing price. Okay, let me just drag the price anyway. So if I drag the price to value, so now the thing is this: if you are analyzing stocks, imagine these are your inventory, record of your inventory. What you want to see is the latest. How many of these products do I have in inventory? But in this case, I'm analyzing stock market. What is much more important is what's the current price, right? So a lot of times people will have to create measures to start calculating what is the last price. You can drag dates. By the way, I can change the price to, anyway, let's know, we can do that one after. I can drag dates to filter on this visual. And when I drag date to filter on this visual, I can set it that it should just always show the last date. So I can say it should give for me a relative date. And when I say relative date, I want the last day. So it should just do for me the last date in my data. I'm not including today. If my data has up to today, great. But if it does not have up to today, it should just pick for me the last date in that my data set. And you see what it will do is that right here and here, I will start seeing what is the closing price of all of the companies, right? I'm going to be seeing just the dates that Let me just rearrange this in Z2A so that you see more names you are familiar with rather than the names that are looking a bit different. So sort Zenny. So now you see, oh, Zenny Bank closed at 16 naira. So concept number one is the fact that you can. Let me bring out my writing tool. So Power BI visuals. Concept number one that I'm taking us through is the fact that you can use the visual filter to replicate the equivalent, not completely, but at least to some extent, the equivalent of what we do with calculate, with DAX calculate formula. So sometimes you don't have to always go and use the formula. Like in this case now, what I have done, which is I told it that it should show for me the last price. I have this every day for the last almost 20 years. I have the price of the companies, right? Their closing stock price, their stock market, stock exchange price. What I want to show my user is what is the latest stock price. So just for those of you who came in a bit late, what I now did was I dragged the name of the company to rows. I dragged the price, which has the closing price to values. And then, which if you are using calculate, you will be saying calculate maybe average of price or sum of price. And then you'll be saying filter for date, where date is equal to max date. That's how we normally write the DAX formula. If I'm writing the DAX formula, this is how you will have done it. You will have created the last price measure, and then you'll be saying last price is equal to calculate, and then because you must always aggregate it, so you say average price, but that average is just a placeholder. It's not going to do anything. You can use some, you can use anything, and then you'll be like, okay, a filter. And then in this our NSC table, you should do the price, the date is equal to max or latest dates, whichever. Some people like to use latest dates, whichever you like to use, dates. And then you now close the bracket. But without me using this, I can achieve it with just visual. So that's what I'm demonstrating here. I can achieve it by just dragging dates. I can achieve it by just dragging dates to filter. So originally, before I did that, because a lot of people are just joining, before I did that, what you will be having is, it will be summing up all the value. Definitely, the bank is not selling for 5,000 something. It's summing up all the values of the price across all the date that I have. That's not what I want. I want it to show me the last date. So what do? I just drag dates to filters in this visual, and I say, do for me a relative date, right? And I say, I need the last date. So in the last one day, do not include today. So just use the latest data I have in my data set, apply filter, and that is it. Okay, so now that I've done this, what if I want the prices to be scrolling? I want to see the companies and I want to see the prices scrolling, so that once you're on my dashboard, you'll be seeing all the companies and their prices scrolling. So I'm not limited to the visuals that I have in here. I can go in here and say I want to get more visuals, right? I want to import a visual. You can import from file, you can get from store. In this case, let us do from store, since all of you will have that. So the moment you say get more visuals, it opens this, and then there's a visual called scroller. If I look for scroller, I had it. So scroller allows me to now say I want these things to be scrolling, right? So I'm adding the scroller. I've added the scroller. Okay, so let us place it somewhere in our report. So this is that scroller. I'm going to add it into my report canvas. and then I'm going to say I want to add the companies. So the companies should be scrolling, right? And then I want it to show the last price. So I want it to show price. And based on what I've explained to us, since it's the last price I want to see, I want to drag again date to filter in this visual. If I know that this thing I'm doing is going to apply for all of my visuals in this canvas, I will drag it to filters on this page so that I can just do it once, and that rule will apply to all of the. So maybe since I know that's going to be what I want, I can drag it and say, in this case, I want this thing to apply to all of the visuals I do on this page. So I will say visuals on filters on this page, but then relative dates, and then in the last 1 day dates. And I click on apply, and voila, I'm going to have this, happen to everything, such that for this one that I've done before, I can go and delete the one I have put here on this visual side, so that this one that I've done on the page, you will see to still be applying. So those are some other things you can do. So let us make this our scroller look nice. So I'm going to reshape it. I'm going to make it look like as you see on CNBC and some of all these TV. So I'm going to make it look like this. Okay, so it will be scrolling. I can increase the speed of scroll. So if I want to do things that relate to the speed, the color, and all of that. So for every visual that you use, you will always have this format pane. Okay, so you will always have this format pane. Sorry, someone called Kevin. I want to tell the person that I'm in a training. Call later. Looks like it's urgent. Okay, so I go to this format, and then I can set everything about it that the developer has exposed to us. So I can say that, okay, I want the speed to be faster. So I can make the speed to be like 2 times. Let's see how that works. Since we have a lot of companies, maybe this is better than that one that was taking too much time. Okay, then you can change the color. You can be like, you want the color to be something else. Maybe I want the text color to be green. I'm not really good with colors anyway, so whatever color I put here, if you don't like it, I've told you I'm not good with colors. Okay, so with this now, we can see that there are some reports you will do that you might like this kind of feature on them. Okay, so let's move on to another thing that I want to show. Okay, so now you see this. Okay, what if I want to be able to specify the companies that I want to see? So let me drag this to a side. And whenever you want to control the perspective, we call it perspective. I want to control the view of what is showing. We always use slicer. So let me increase the zoom, and then let's go pick a slicer. It has a funnel. Now this is it. They keep rotating the arrangement. Before it used to be around here. So, but once you look for funnel, you will always know it's the visual with the funnel. Okay, so now that I've added a slicer, I want to be able to pick a company, right? So what do? I add a company to it. It has only one field. So once you add a company, now you can be able to specify the company. But here I have a whole lot of securities, right? What if I want to be able to type so that it can be faster for me to go from one company? Maybe I want to see Nestle, and then boom, Nestle shows. Even on my scroller, it will only be Nestle that will be displaying. Okay, so if I want to be faster with the whole choosing, instead of having to scroll and scroll, one thing I can do is that I can come in to these more options and enable search. So once I enable search, it makes it possible for me to type what I'm interested in. So I can say I'm interested in Dangote. Okay, so now you can see as for Dangote, there's Dangote cement, there's Dangote sugar. Maybe I want to pick all the Dangotes. So I want to pick the Dangote cement. I also want to pick the Dangote sugar. But now I'm facing a problem. Whenever I click one, it unchecks the other, right? So that is one thing about the default behavior of the slicer. We can go and change that. So if I go in here and I go back here, I can say I want to change the selection control. So now I want it, instead of multi-select with control, I want it to be possible that my user can just be like ticking. So what do? This is the way it was. This way it was means you have to hold down the control key for you to select multiple. How many people will know that? It's only because I use pivot. Okay, someone is trying to ask you a question, Abby. Let me just quickly check. Mr. Odukoya, you can, if you want to talk, you can ask your question. You know, if you want to say your question out loud.
So I just want to ask.
All right.
If from the initial data that you showed, right? If you want to show it on using different visual tools or visualization tools, how do you do it? Because sometimes some of this data you may be able to view it on a format and not be able to view it on another visualization tool. Is there a way to maybe aggregate some data such that maybe you can show them on a pie chart or you can show them on a bar chart, etc.? Thank you.
Okay. So, if anybody wants to answer the question, I'm not sure I got it very, very well, but I'm sure some of you are following. Then maybe I can answer the way I got it. Anybody wants to chime in and say something about what he said? The part I got about it is okay. You know, if you have multiple options of visuals to use, maybe like how do you know which visual to use, and then also maybe, you know, how do you decide maybe to use pie chart or bar chart? Did I get that part correct?
Okay, what I'm saying is that from the initial flow you showed,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I'm just asking that, you know, that kind of flow you can't be represented using a bar chart or something like that, right?
Yes. Usually, all the charts, there's something about all the charts in terms of that each chart is always good for some kind of restricted type of stuffs. So if I know that I want to show something that is more than 10, or I will not want to use a pie chart or a bar chart because they will become so tiny. Very difficult. Imagine as I have companies here and the companies are up to 100. I'm not going to use a pie chart. If I try to use a pie chart, you know, it's not going to make sense at all. It will just be like, let me just show you what it will look like. If I convert this to a pie chart, and then let me just put some figures in there. It doesn't matter what I'm showing. Let me just and I sent you this. And you'll be happy if I send you a report like this because you'll be able to say this is what is happening there. There's a whole lot of activities busy. The chart is busy. Okay, so that's the thing. But the good thing about chat is you will always see it. You can always put yourself in the shoes of the user. So sometimes I try some things out and then I see this thing doesn't make sense. You know, let me just use another way, or maybe I should find a way of compressing it. So if I know that I want to show the prices of all the companies, you know, I can start thinking of more creative ways. I can always use a table. Table works nice for things that are really large. I can use this scroller too if I feel that, okay, my user can at least forgive the fact that this thing is many and they will enjoy the fact that they can see scrolling. And then if I know that, okay, in this company, or my users will always want to be able to narrow down to what interests them, then, you know, we can always still use this slicer and say, you know what, even though I'm showing you everything, you can always do slicer to go to what you want. And then if I know that my data has categories, maybe all these companies are in different categories, and we have maybe like 6 categories, I could even do this slide, the pie chart in a drill down way. So let us see. I think we have categories in our data. Let's just verify that. So we have sector. Yes, so we have sector. So if I know that, oh, we have sector, why not then make it that, you know what, pick a sector. So let me zoom again. So why not let me, why don't I just first let my user be able to see on a sector basis? So when I put on a sector basis, it might be a bit, sector basis, sector first. So if I put on a sector, can you see this is more manageable? This is easier for someone to, compared to that other one. It's still a lot, but it's not like a lot compared to that one. Then I can now turn on drill down and say, okay, when you click on a sector, it will now drill down to the companies from that sector. So sometimes you can always, ultimately you want to know what your users will want to see. Then you work backwards. So how do I show them what they want to see in a manageable, in a less crowded, less suboptimal way? Let me use that word. So for me, I always start with what is important for the user to see. And then I start using that to pick out what's the best visual, what's the way I can show this user this thing he wants to see, and he will not feel overwhelmed, and he will not feel lost in the data. Okay, so thank you for the question. Anybody wants to add anything or say something in addition? Okay, so if nobody's adding anything, I'm going to move on. I don't need this my chat. I just wanted to use that to answer your question.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, yes, you can.
Okay, I asked earlier on, so I did not see exactly how you created the scroll button. That's the one at the top that has the data moving.
Okay. You joined us late, but well, since you have asked us a question, we can always answer. So I will just do it again. Ordinarily, I would have said, oh, you should go and watch the video. The filter video is like you can see. Someone also posted, so Mr. Dapo said filter visuals is to allow you to select item so you can see the other details on the other item. You cannot achieve that using a file or a patch. Okay, I didn't get that part. All right, so let me redo the scroller. I'm going to delete it. So I click on it. I go here. I pick remove. Then I'm going to also delete it from because I've added it here. So I'm going to remove it from here also. Scroller. That's the thing now. How do I delete? Before there used to be this delete. So. Anybody knows how to delete this thing from based on how it is now?
Yes. Hello?
Remove from, I want to, okay, yes.
Click on the eclipse.
Oh, okay.
On the visual eclipse.
Yes, remove the visual.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. Though I know that they started using this experience for a while now. Before, if you just right click on the visual, you can remove it. Okay, so the scroller. So I click here, get more scroller, get more visuals, right? And I come in here, I click on, I type the name of the visual I want, which I know is scroller. I use it a lot, so that's why I'm not going to search for it. I'll just type it right there and there and say I want to add a scroller. And then it will add, so this is it being added for me. Then I click on it to say I want to add it to my canvas. I've clicked on it. Let me just click on it again. Okay. All right, I need to turn off that one. So I click on it, boom, and then it adds to my visual, to my canvas. Okay, so I'm going to just reshape it to that shape. Put it up here. And let me just put it here. Okay, and then these are the fields about it. So I want to show the names of the company. So I drag the name to category. And what do I want to see about them? I want to see the closing price. So for the stocks, what were the prices they closed at? It also has this thing for showing deviation. So there's one of my dashboard that I did the deviation part also in there. Okay, I was wondering why was it not showing. So let me just increase the zoom. Okay, all right. I mean the width. Okay, so this is how I created it. Then I told us that you can customize the features. You can come in here under format and say, I want to customize things about it. So for instance, I want the color. So I change the color of the text from white to green, right? Then I also can control the speed. I can tell it to, starting from 1, you can also even reduce the speed, but I want it faster. So I can say 2, or I can say 2.5, so that way it scrolls faster, especially when you have a lot of things to display. So you don't want to make it really boring. So that's how I did it. Okay, so we were talking about the slicer before the questions came in.
Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. Right, so continuing, I just want to be sure that I can see everybody. So we were talking about the slicer. Let me zoom again. Okay, so I was saying that if you want to click multiple things, you'll have to pick, then hold down the control key and add another one, right? This is not a very good experience if you know that your users are going to be selecting more than one item a lot. So what do? I go to the settings for the slicer and I go to selection control and I say no, I don't want to turn on multi-select with control. I want the multi-select to be there, without the person having to click on control to achieve multiple selection. So I turn off the multi-select with control, and guess what happens? This begins to show as a checkbox. So this way I can be able to pick. Let me just make this thing to sort in a way that okay, no problem. I'm going to use descending with what will make it easy for me to so at least we'll see companies that have figures instead of looking at bonds. It's those bonds that start with their coupon payment. Okay, so once I do that, I should be able to see, okay, this is what is locking it. Go back from here. All right. So instantly you will see that I'll be able to see. In fact, let me remove this so that we go step by step. Remove this. Okay. All right. So you can enable multi-select, and there are some reports I do where I don't want the user to select more than one. The natural experience is they want to select, like currently I'm doing something for a FMCG, and the user is supposed to select the outlets. So you're supposed to select an outlet and see the statistics about the outlet. In that case, you will be selecting only one item. You will not be selecting multiple. So their report page was supposed to show analysis for an outlet, which is one entity, right? So what do? I go to selection control. I say select, single select. I use this also too for years. So when I create the report and I want to select the year you want to view the report for, I make that one single select, so you can pick a year and you see the report, so that you don't go and combine 2 years together. Okay, so single select, multi-select, you have those features. Okay, so that is slicer. Then what about what I said? What if I want you to be able to go sector, like almost like a drill down or multiple categories in my slicer? So that's one thing that they've made possible with the default slicer. Before, you will have to go and add a slicer that has that effect from the store. But now, in our slicer, you can add more than one field to achieve what I've said. So I can come in here and add sector. Where is sector? So I can go add sector now before the name. So that way you can be able to sector. Yeah. So now I get to have a sector that I can expand and see the companies in the sector. Okay. Maybe in this case, multi-select is better. So I come in here, I say turn off single select, and then. So these are other things that you can do with your slicer. Okay. So let's move on. And then, what sort of situations where you okay, so we've done that. Let's move on to other kinds of visuals. I want to show I want to show as a line chart all the stock prices. Okay, so for all the companies that you have there, I want to show as a line chart their stock prices, but now over a range of dates. So I'm back to a situation where I need the dates. And if you've been following all what we've been doing, you'll find out that by putting dates in this filter on this page, will begin to interfere with this. So if I drag the names to legend, so where's names? Name to legend, date to axis, because that's how the line chart works. What you want to plot against will be in axis. I'm going to say this date should not be in hierarchy, it should just be continuous dates, you know. And see, if I now drag, I want to see the stock price. So if I drag price to values, I'm only going to have one value. And you know why? Because of this filter stuff, this filter on this page. Okay, so you need to, that's why you need to be very careful what you do on filter on this page. Whatever you put in filter on this page affects the entire page, you know, such that any other visuals you had will get that effect. So since I don't want that, right, I'm going to remove it from filter on this page. And then I will only be configuring that filter for only the items. So here I drag dates to this one. So I start doing it one by one for only the ones that I needed to have that effect. Okay, so because of time, I will only do for this one and not worry about the other ones. So in the last one day. Yeah, you can even pick last 1 week if it's a weekly stuff, or last 1 year if it's a yearly stuff. So last 1 day, I click apply, and then so I've done that for this, then I'm going to do for this one also. Okay, so now let's talk about this one that we are doing. The as you can see, this is now showing the prices, but I don't think you will like the way it is displaying, right? So how can we make this look a little better, right? So let me come out of the zoom, and then I'm going to pick, let's pick 2 companies. In fact, I'm going to use the ticker name instead of the company name. I'm going to come in here and use the ticker name. So symbol. I'll do likewise here so that it makes it a bit easier to read. So instead of name, symbol in legend. That way it will break down all of the. Then let's pick two companies in the same sector, right? So I'm going to collapse this. Okay, collapse this one. So let's pick, say, like Zenith Bank and GTB. Okay, all right. So now, what are the things about all the charts, not just even line charts, that you can fiddle with when you are using them as a visual in Power BI? You can control whether to display a label. If I go in here, I can turn on click on the charts, turn on the data label. This will be very crowded if I try that here, but just so you see that yes, you can. Okay, that's one. You can always change the title. Okay, so if I go here, I can adjust the title. I can say the title should be stock price for selected company, or let's just leave it as stock price. Now you will notice there's an FX beside the title. This allows you to conditionally set the color of the title, right? So I can be like, okay, if something is above a particular figure, so I can say if the price value based on, let's say, price is, if the stock price or the change, let's even pick the change. Let me pick the price change. Okay. So if the price change is positive, just for demonstration's sake, I can use anything, because once you get the whole idea, you can use for what makes sense for you. So I'm going to just use the price. So I'm going to say if the price is above a particular threshold, so if the price NSC price okay, I need it to click. Okay. The issue is I'm using a cached version of the data. So I'm going to open the raw data. I just don't want to touch that live one before, but as it is now, to demonstrate this one, I need to just go and open that live one. So while that one is opening, any questions? So I'm going to quickly also show you other visuals that you will find really useful. So if I go to get more visuals, if you want to use an image as your filter, there's this slider called Kicklet Slider. If you just type chick, it will come out. So if I pick this allows you to set images as your, okay. So if I click on it, and no, I don't want it to replace this, so I'm going to undo. I don't want it to replace the chart. I want it to do as a separate one. So I'm clicking on undo that. Okay, so I can have it separately. Okay. All right, so that's empty. Come in here. Right. So if you have different categories and their images, right? So I can come here and demonstrate something like that. So let us go to insert and insert some new table of data. You can see I can't enter data. It's because of the thing I did. Let me just open this other one here. Okay, great. So I can use this. This one has what I'm just going to save as so that I don't go and leave my changes because this is a live report. So I'm going to save as, I will call this demo so that what I want to show you will work. And then so that I don't touch the original ones, I'm going to go and create a new sheet. Okay, so what I wanted to show us, let's go back to the line chart. Line chart. Let me just add the slicer. And for this sake, I'm just going to add the symbol. I'm going to add symbol. Why I'm not zooming my screen is I'm just repeating what we have done before. Okay. So great. And then I'm dragging price to value, and then I'm dragging date to axis. I'm changing the date to value instead of hierarchy. Okay, and then I'm going to put the symbol in legend so that all of the different companies will show separately. Okay, so this was where we were, and I wanted to show us something. So let's just pick a company. I'm going to pick Access Bank. Okay, so now this is for, okay, so this is for Access Bank. So I was talking about the title, right? The fact that the title, when I was changing the title name, so changing the title name, I changed it to stock stock chart. Let's just call it stock chart. Okay, so now in my data, there's a field called price change. Let's just check it together. Since this one, that other one, I could not show you the data. The data was coming directly from Power BI, so I could not manipulate the data. But unfortunately, I want to do something that I need to be able to manipulate the data. So I have a particular field called price change. If I pick Access Bank here, if I pick Access Bank, I have 15 more minutes. If I pick Access Bank, you can see here that change, where is the price change? P change. This is it. So I have values that are like from negative to positive, right? Okay, so now that we've seen that when the company loses value, I mean loses, like closes lower, like there was a loss that trading day, it comes as negative. So now that we've seen that, how can I use that to control the color of the chart title? So let's start together. So that is the usefulness of this FX. Anywhere you see FX in Power BI, it means that you can do conditional formatting. So that's what it stands for here, conditional formatting. So I click on it, and then I say I want this to be based off the price change field. on price. Okay, so peak change field for this NSE daily. Well, let me pick that one. Let me pick something else. I'm going to pick, let me use this one. Based on, let's see. Okay, for some weird reason, it's not letting me pick the ones that have figures. That's a very unfortunate thing. All right, so anyway, just to demonstrate it, I'm going to just go ahead with that one and say, if the name is something, maybe it's firstly, then on Zoom, I want to set field formatted by field value, yes. This is not making sense for this demonstration. We'll use it in another place. We'll use it somewhere else where maybe for font color, let's see. Okay, so let's use it for this one. I'm going to type again the price change. Right, so price change. So for this is allowing, but for that title is not letting me pick value. So let's just use this one for this demonstration. So I pick for text for font color, right? And then I say if the value is, if the sum of all the price change up until now is less than 0, I want a specific color, default formatting and 0. So from -10 to plus, let's pick +10, right? So I want the font color to change, and the moment I do that, depending on the stock I pick, the font color should change. So it's computing. This font color is now green. If I pick a stock that has not been performing really well, so let's pick another company. Let me pick, I think Unilever has not been having a very good time. So let us try Unilever for some periods. Unilever. Can you see that the color is changing, right? So sometimes this can make sense for you where you want to make the color of some features of your chart to change depending on the values in your data. So that's another interesting thing they've added. Then another part of a line chart that many people, so let me just click on a line chart. So whenever you pick a line chart, you always have all these extra controls under these analytics, right? There have been times that I did charts and I needed to show average line. Instead of me having to go and create another DAX formula and start calculating what's the average and plotting it, right? What do? I come over here and I tell Power BI that I want to add a maximum line or an average line. So let's maybe add them one after the other. I want to see an average line. So I say I want to see an average line. I'm going to call the line, you can rename it anyway, and you can change the color. So I can just call it average price. Average price. Okay, and you can change the color as you want. If you also want to see a maximum line, you can add a maximum line. So it will let you see what was the maximum in that entire data set, that period, right? You can also change the color. So let's make the color different from the one we have just used. Okay, you can also add a minimum line. So you get the whole concept anyway. So if you have, if you want to forecast into the future, right, it also allows you to create a forecast. So let's see where the forecast is. Let me just turn off the maximum and the minimum line so that we can go on to the forecast. Turn that one off. Turn off. Okay. Zoom. Okay, so I want to do a forecast just to be sure why it's not coming up. Okay, this is why it was not coming up. Let me take this off from here, because normally you will see the forecast here. It's still not coming up. Okay, yeah, it has come up now. So it was whenever, before I wasn't seeing the forecast, right? It was because I have something in Legend. Forecast only works on one value. So the moment you have something in Legend, which means that you can have multiple categories, then the forecast have an issue. So right now that I've removed that, then I can go to forecast and say I want to forecast for the next 1 or 2 periods, right? So I can say I want to forecast for the next 10 periods into the future. Okay, so let's say that's what I want. We should forecast 10 days into the future. We should ignore last point, days, 10 days into the future. Okay, and then I say apply, and you will see what will happen. Because it's so tiny, you're not seeing it. Let me add a slicer for the dates. So we're going to add a slicer, and we're going to select a date. Add date to the slicer. Okay, and then I'm going to rearrange the shape of these. Sorry if my presentation today is not looking fluid. I couldn't do any practice, any rehearsal. I'm so tired, and I did training from Monday to Saturday. The only time I had small time to rest was on Thursday. So that's why things are a bit rough. Like I'm using you to be doing the testing, but these are tools that I use regularly anyway. So if I reduce the amount of periods to something a bit more manageable, so that you'll be able to see those 10 days easily. Okay, so let's see. Can you see it has come up? So you can always create a forecast. Just that I can't show you real client work. This thing, some clients value it. The fact that they can look at their data and they can see what the next couple of days will be like, you know, it's very important to some clients. And it shows with upper bound, lower bound. So if you have data that forecast makes sense, this thing uses what we call triple exponential smoothing, which means that it captures seasonality, it captures trend, it captures, let me just show you. You can customize even components of that. You can say maybe your stuff always, the seasonality is based off a 12 data points if it is monthly, right? You can set it, you can change your confidence interval, you can tell it that you want to ignore some values. So it gives you, though not as robust features as you have if when you use this thing in Excel, but it has as much as you need for most situations. Okay, so now that we've done this part, which other common things do I see people go and use formulas for? You know, in use DAX for, use Power Query for, that they could have achieved easily with visuals. All right, so another is CAD. CAD is very powerful. Imagine that I want to write something and say, okay, the selected company is ABC, right? So I'm going to add a card, and I want to write something like, so I want to write a text, like a dynamic label. I don't want it to be static text. Static text means I will have used if I wanted to do static text, I have 4 more minutes. I will have gone here and inserted a text box. But whenever you want to do something that is dynamic, you use a card most of the time and you create a measure. So let us do that. So I'm going to show you. I use it a lot if you see any of my report, maybe if you work in a company I've done something for, and you see any of my work that has titles that are changing, that are dynamic, what I've done is I've used, so let's create a new measure. I've used measure and card. So new measure, then wait for it to come up. It's a large data set. This is not supposed to take this long. Okay, so the measure is up. New measure, right? So let's type it together. So I can call it dynamic title. Dynamic title. And I can say that the selected company, so whatever company you have selected in the symbol. So let's say symbol in this NSC daily symbol. Okay. So I want to say this company closed. It's currently trading at I put the price. Price is coming. In fact, I say average price so that I can pick the price I need. NSC daily price. Okay. And I can add more things and say, it's currently trading at and has a price to earning ratio of, again, PE, average of PE, average of PE. Anyway, I also need something, and I can say it has a dividend yield. Anyway, this is enough to demonstrate it. So if I press enter, right, this becomes like a text. I forgot to close the bracket here. It's already complaining. Let's do that. Even this, I forgot to close the bracket here. So let's do that right now. I'm going to close the bracket. Still working. Okay. So I close this bracket and I close this bracket. Okay, so that is. Why is it still underlining that? Anyway, it looks okay. I don't know why it's still underlining. So I've closed the bracket. Okay, now it has detected I've closed the bracket. So I'm going to drag this onto my card. So my card will become a text, like a title text. But I know that it's a card I use. If you see it in the final report, you will not know it's a card. You will think I use an intelligent text box. That's what you will think. Okay, so I'm going to drag that dynamic title into the card. Remember what I use, card. So now I have a title that is dynamic. So Unilever is currently trading at, you know, blah blah. I can put it to whatever I want, and I want it to have. So we'll do just 2 more stuffs on it, and we'll close for the day. Number one is the fact that I don't want this dynamic title to show there. I just want the text alone to show. So I go here. I turn off category. Category is that label underneath here. So that one is gone. You see, this is my price that is showing here. I want it to be formatted as Naira or formatted as 2 decimal places, right? So I go back to the dynamic title, and then I say it should format this as maybe in NGN. If you have the Naira symbol, you can put it there. It's because I'm lazy. I can go and grab the Naira symbol too from the. But for now, let's just go ahead with. So it's formatted as NGN, and you know what? I'll put the NGN outside. So let's not even stress ourselves. I can always type the NGN outside. Let's just put the. I hope this thing has not frozen again. Okay. It froze while I was doing. Okay, so I'm going to format this, right, as hash, comma, hash, 0, 2 decimal places. Put the NGN, so close that one. Put the NGN in front here, or maybe just N. Anybody who sees N will know it's Naira, right? And I also do the same format here. And format has so you know all those stuffs we do in Excel. When you go and pick custom formatting, you can do it within formulas also in Power BI. So I'm going to just close this. Any other thing I'm supposed to do? Close the bracket. Okay, and enter. Sorry that I've gone beyond the time that is stipulated. I just want to let this one be done up to the proper way. Most of the time you will have to do it, so you don't learn it halfway. All right, so you can see that it's showing as currently trading at 23 Naira, blah, blah. Okay, then you will notice that this price here is not going to be reflecting the last price. So remember the trick I told us. The trick is for me to drag dates instead of me having to create a complex calculate and blah, blah. All I just do is I drag date to this visual, filter on this visual, and I set the date to the last trading date, so the last date that we have in the data. So this thing, I use it a lot because it's very fast. You don't have to start creating measures upon measures for every single thing you want to do. Or sometimes some people, because of that, they will just decide not to do that calculation. They will be like, I know this thing is too much problem. I don't want to go ahead. So for some reasons, it's not picking for Unilever. Let me pick a different company. And then let me change this to single select. Single select. Okay. Then change this from Unilever to. That was why I used that other one. That one has the most updated data. So let's just see. This one has up until. For now, let me take this off since we already know how to do that. Okay, great. Is there any other thing that is locking up my data? Okay. This is access. Sorry. So it was that cleared this one, yeah. Then relative date last 1 day. All right. Let me just zoom it again. There was something else that was there that was affecting it. So I've cleared it, and then I'm resetting this back to last 1 day. So it should work fine as expected. Yeah. So it's working fine as expected. It has gone off again. There is one stuff that is affecting it on this my other chart, but anyway, you saw it work last 1 day. Today is August, right? Let me just use something else. Use advanced filtering and then pick the last, no, basic filtering. Oh, no. I want to use another method. Yeah, top N. Yes. So give me the top one by dates. So this is another alternative you can use. It does the same thing, but in my own case where that one is giving me an issue based on my data is not updated, I can just use this one to overcome that issue. And so get for me the top one items by the latest dates in now my data apply filter. So see, perfect. Okay, so there are more than one way to achieve the same thing anyway. Thank you very much. I think it's good to stop at this point. At least you've taken away 1 or 2 tips that I use a lot with visuals. I know I didn't touch all the visuals. The main thing is just to show you some of the tricks I use in visuals that saves me from doing Power Query or doing DAX. And it seems someone is asking something or someone is indicating. Let me check. Okay, someone is raising his hand. Okay, yes, please fire on. You can instantly start sharing your opinions or whatsoever you want to share. So, Mr. Dapo, yeah, you can turn on your mic.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now, I want to ask, between using filters for your visuals and writing measures to, to control whatever you want to achieve, which one is better in terms of performance? You get what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you would want to ensure that you are able, the turnaround time between the input and output session is a very, very minimal, and users are not left, hanging before the result comes out. So which one is better? Is it using filters for visuals or writing the measures? Thank you.
Okay. I have to confess, I'm not the expert on the performance side of things like measuring the performance, because the truth is usually the way to correctly answer is for me to try what I'm doing right now using the filters on the visual and time it. So there are these tools that help you to time. Even right there in your Power BI, you have something that helps you to capture performance. Where is that part there now? So you have this thing that helps you to track performance of all the activities, what is taking, to do a timeline and show you what is taking the most time in all your computation. But for me, what I can easily tell you is that, to be sincere, when I'm doing reports, the part that takes time most for me, I can always optimize when I'm done. But I want to prototype. I want to quickly do things and get it and get the client to sign off and say, okay, this is what we want. So instead of me going ahead and creating a lot of measures, sometimes if I know that I can achieve the very same thing using the visual filter, I would rather do that, so that as I'm doing a review meeting with you, and you're saying, you know what, I want to see this thing only showing me, instead of the total sales, you show me the last sales. Instead of me going to do a measure to calculate the last sales, you know, what was the last sale we made to that client, I quickly just drag the date onto the visual and say, you know what, show me the last record, just filter down to the last sale. And right there and there, you can, without me doing formulas or anything, you know, in like 20 seconds, the person can say, okay, yeah, so this is what I want, or okay, we are getting there, but can you tweak it? Can you? Then later on, if I see that that thing is, I'm going to be using that last sales a lot, then I would rather go and create a visual, a measure for it, because measure allows you to reuse things. Whereas if I'm always putting it on a chart and using this filter, then every chart, everywhere I need it, I have to be repeating the same process. But if I've created a measure for it, then I don't have to be doing the filter all over again. But I know your question is much more related to the performance side of, if I can do it via filter and I can do it via measure, which one will have given me the, I'm tempted to say that since this chart stuff will always generate an implicit measure to do it to, you might find out that the performance will be similar. The only difference is just that implicit measures are always, it's just like doing record VBA in Excel. The record VBA in Excel, we always take a particular approach to recording your steps or generating what you want. Whereas if you are typing the VBA yourself, you all have options of different ways to type it. That you can type it in some ways that will be much more optimal than how the implicit one will have done. So those will even revolve around very complex things where the different ways of achieving it will have different costs associated. So the summary of it is that two things. One is the fact that this one helped me faster with prototyping. Two is that if I know that I'm going to be reusing this thing again and again, it's better to tie it to a measure rather than just be doing it every time I'm working on a visual. And maybe to sneak in a third one. The third one is that, well, if you are very good with measures, there are sometimes a way you can write a measure that will always work faster than if you leave the Power BI to do an implicit measure, because this one does an implicit measure anyway. So that's the three things I can say. But I've never done a benchmark test to see if there have been, for the simple ones I've been doing, if there has been any significant timing difference in the performance. But I think they should be similar. Mr. Odukoya, you also have a question before we close. Okay, maybe it was that hand he was raising the other time. All right, so any other question? So Mr. Dapo, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have a clear-cut answer, but those are the three things that I know I can say that I can defend.
Yes, you answered my question, and you wanted to show the performance analyzer under the View tab, I think.
Yes, that was what I wanted to do. Thank you. This performance analyzer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You are even more conversant with the menus more than me. Today has been somehow for me to use some things that I used to know when I was doing one other session today. It was like, where is this thing again now? All right. So thank you very much. As usual, it will be same time next week. And if you, so Mr. Dapo, one thing we did in the Excel session, we had people present. So if you want to present, one of the sessions we said maybe you can even show us some things around what you've done, even on the minimum, even the ones you've done that were publicly available, like that extract stuff. Report. So if do you want us to book time for you next week? You can just feel you want to share.
I'll discuss that with you.
Okay, all right. So maybe I'll contact you after.
Okay, sir.
So thank you, everybody. See you again next week. Very nice.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.